Autumn, the final frontier. What better way to celebrate the return of cooler weather than with a Card Time video. Card Time is back because I'm not going to melt inside this thing. And we're going to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks all-new episode, Veritas. They did it! They finally did it. I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor of this Egotastic Card Time video, Pranakasha Productions, who just came out recently with Orville classic Star Trek, the original series crossover event, co-starring me, JP, in command of my own Orvillian ship, the Egotastica. So you can click on the link below in the description after watching this video, and you can check out Matt Weiss over at Pranakasha Productions. Star Trek Lower Decks finally did it. They brought in Q. John Delancey, of course, reprising his role as Q in this Veritas episode. Veritas, what is that? Life? Vitality? Well, it's the same thing, really. Maybe it means something else. Doesn't matter what it means, you guys. It was an amazing episode. Might be my favorite episode of Lower Decks so far because so much happened, and it has some pretty sweet ass jokes in there too, making fun of the stuff that I like to make fun of. It also makes fun of, you know, a little bit of the current state of what we know of Star Trek, the Federation, and that's not even talking about what they're doing next week. The next episode is hardcore. They're going after making fun of the JJ Trek stuff. I cannot wait to see what they come up with. But as we know, Star Trek Lower Decks is the most Star Trek legacy canon obsessed show ever in existence. It's the most canniest canon Star Trek that's ever existed, and I still say it's not canon. It's not legacy canon, but it's obsessed with legacy canon. It plays out like an episode of The Next Generation. It looks like The Next Generation. Even the credits are like The Next Generation. By the way, I don't know if anyone's talked about this. The theme song for Lower Decks is lit. It's a banger. It's an amazing theme song. It could have been the theme to a live action Star Trek show, you know, maybe a fun, we're going on an adventure type Star Trek show, but a Star Trek show nonetheless. And I'm using the word Star Trek as much as I can because, you know, you want to, you know, tip off that YouTube algorithm that this is a Star Trek video. Motorcycle came by. People on motorcycles are jerks, you guys. F motorcycles. And I know some of you probably have a motorcycle. Get rid of it. Finally, one of a hardcore Star Trek trope is the alien trial episode, and that's what this was. So we were led to believe. That's what the Lower Decks crew believed. Turned out to be, like many times when there's a really dire situation in Lower Decks episodes, at the end it always turns out to be not exactly what we thought. We're always kind of seeing things, situations in this show from the point of view of the Lower Decks crew. So whatever they perceive something to be is what we, the audience, that's how they're going to play it out to the audience, so that we can be surprised at the end, just as the Lower Decks crew is. While Boimler and Mariner are, of course, the leads of the episode, but they're not really the stars. They're not really the subjects. This is really a hardcore Tendi and Rutherford episode where we get this, you know, during the trial, it comes out some situations that Rutherford and Tendi were going through. They're both fish out of waters. They're both forced into situations that they have no business being in. Tendi having some sort of covert operation with Ransom and Ransom's team of badasses. So we gotta get to see their mission of what they're doing, infiltrating a Romulan ship to, obtain a thing, an artifact, I guess we can call it. The guy that's putting on the trial throughout the episode, which I don't know who played. His voice sounded very familiar. The alien that was playing, the alien that put them on trial. His voice sounded very familiar, but I couldn't place it, and I didn't look into it. So if you want to go ahead and look into who played the voice of that character, put that in the comments below. Very much appreciated. One thing I love about the Egotastic community is anytime I don't know something, one of you guys do, and you're more than willing to share and educate the rest of us. So every time we get together, every time I put out a video, talking about how I feel, but I always learn something, and that's because of you guys. Rutherford's adventure was also amazing. We get to see him on a mission that he has no business being a part of, and he had no idea what was going on the entire time because he was doing an upload and he kept resetting. His positronic brain kept resetting, so he just kept waking up in the next phase of the mission, not knowing what's going on. Yes, we went back to Vasquez Rocks in this episode, animated episode, which I don't think I never planned on seeing Vasquez Rocks there, but there they were. There was the Gorn. He was all of a sudden found himself in the middle of a Gorn wedding. The Romulan stuff was really great. Now we have to remember, this is 2380. This is 19 years before the adventures, before the story of the Picard series. Picard is still in Starfleet. I don't know if he's an admiral at this point, though it would make sense that he is. I think we're right on the verge of the Romulan Empire star not exploding, but us as the Federation finding out that it's going to explode at some point. So the whole Romulan rescue mission is not in play as far as timeline goes. Not that I even care, because I'm not placing this into a Star Trek timeline. It's a cartoon. I love it. I enjoy it, but I'm not like, okay, well, this episode goes against what happened in Star Trek Lower Decks. No, it's a whole animated universe. We got tons of different universes in the Star Trek now. The Star Trek, man, that sounds like an old person. Even CBS has now, even though they're not saying, oh, it's all different universes, they kind of are, because their new slogan is Star Trek Universe, meaning that all the different Star Treks are all part of, all these different universes. They all come together to form Star Trek, whatever that means to you, whatever that means to me. And of course, what it means to you is different than what it means to me. Just like a song that you hear on the radio, it means something different to everybody, but we all love it as a whole. I don't love every single piece of Star Trek, but on a whole, I love Star Trek. But yeah, this episode was a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, and some great lines. The line that really stands out the most, and they kind of made this joke twice. Mariner says, oh my God, we gotta be cool about this, or they're gonna send us back to Earth, the most boring place, where all there is to do on Earth is drink wine and hang out at vineyards and go to soul food restaurants. That was absolutely hilarious. A little knock on TNG, a little bit of DS9 there with the soul food restaurant. Basically, Earth is so utopian, it's just boring. There's nothing to do there. There's nothing to aspire to be. I've always thought about that. I'm like, man, Earth would be so boring to live. That's why we want to get on these ships and go out there and explore. As humans, we need some strife. We need some drama a little bit, or else we're just not happy. We go brain dead. So it was nice that they made a joke about that. But then also at the end, when Q shows up for the second time in this episode for a nice little joke, they're like, oh, get out of here, Q. We don't want any more randomness today. And go hang out with Picard or something like that. And Q's like, oh, Picard, all he does is quote Shakespeare all the time and drink wine. We knew from a couple weeks ago during Star Trek Day, we found out that Q was going to show up on Lower Decks. And I assumed, and I was correct, people are like, oh my God, there's going to be, Q showing up. I'm like, it's not going to be a big deal, you guys. It'll be just a quick cameo. It'll be kind of like the equivalent of a cutaway jokes, like on Family Guy. Family Guy does that all the time with the cutaways. And that's what it was. But it was actually, he was there a lot more than I thought. I thought it was going to be a quick joke where he just popped in, hello, mon ami, and then they say, oh, get out of here, Q, and he leaves or something like that. And I also like that Q is the judge the Judge Q that when we first were introduced to Q in the TNG series. He is that Q where he's putting humanity on trial. He wants to challenge humanity, this and that. So I'm glad we got the legit Q as opposed to the Q that he eventually evolved to be throughout the series, throughout TNG. Q is eternal, so Q can go to any time that he wants, any time in his own timeline. I don't even know if the Q that was on the Cerritos is the Q that evolved to have all the adventures that he did on Voyager, DS9, TNG, or if it really is that same exact Q that we first met in TNG. And because time is not linear for him, any version of him in his own timeline can go anywhere. He might meet himself every once in a while, kind of like some Doctor Who time travel stuff going on. I doubt we see Q again. At least not John Delancey's Q, because there are other Q out there. But it was great to see him. It was great to have that throwback. The show is so legit. This show is so legit, you guys. If you are a fan of 90s Star Trek, which of course you are, this Lower Decks is exactly what you want if they're going to do a comedy animated Star Trek series. You may think you're a hardcore Star Trek fan. You're going to have a hard time keeping track of all the hardcore canon references that every single episode of Lower Decks throws out. So I'm very much looking forward to next week's episode. We have 2 more episodes left. I'm guessing next week's episode will probably be the Rise of Veritas is probably what they're going to call it. I don't exactly know. It's kind of a long name for an episode, but it's fun. Next week they are making fun of JJ Trek. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what they think of JJ Trek and make some jokes and probably kick its ass a little bit, but while also having a lot of fun. And that's all I care about, is having fun in this universe, having fun with you, and building the Egotastic community. And if you want to join the fight for positive fandom and support Egotastic FunTime, a really great way to do that is to become a patron. I recently revamped all of my Patreon page, all the tiers. I have special badges for every single tier, special rewards, lots of exclusive content coming to Patreon, not just monthly, but weekly. Special videos, special rewards, special podcasts just for patrons. And I'd love to see you there. So I'll see you very soon. And as always, I hope all your times are Egotastic fun times. Live long and prosper. Love you. Bye-bye.
Egotastic fun time. We're gonna have a great time. Egotastic fun time. Give me all your money. Give him all your money. You will find it funny. Just give me money. I love money. Give him all your 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 money.